Nestled in the heart of the bustling metropolis of Los Angeles lies a relic of the past, a forgotten gem with tales to tell. The old Los Angeles Zoo, situated within the sprawling confines of Griffith Park, this abandoned zoo stands as a hauntingly beautiful testament to LA's history and changing landscape of animal care and conservation. The origins of the old LA Zoo can be traced back to 1912, when the zoo officially opened its doors. Housing a collection of animals ranging from monkeys to lions, the zoo rapidly became a favorite spot for residents and tourists alike. Although the enclosures were a far cry from the expansive, naturalistic habitat seen in modern zoos. Please follow us as we explore the history, the sadness, and the curse of this old abandoned zoo. Please remember to always like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. The zoo had a dicey beginning. With the support of park and city officials, along with private stakeholders and financial backing, all seemed assured, until, that is, it wasn't. The result was the zoo was constructed with next to nothing for a budget, and was as basic as it gets. As the saying goes, you get what you pay for. And from day one, the zoo was plagued with mishaps and missteps. In 1916, a few years after opening, it was discovered that sewage was leaking into the LA River. Because of this, the health department nearly shut it down. The animals were housed in rudimentary cages and enclosures. The bears in hillside caves. Larger animals were confined in jerry-rigged corrals. Small animals often escaped their fragile structures. In 1914, an aviary and more cages were constructed. But during World War I, there was a meat shortage, so beef was substituted for horse meat. This led to a lot of illness and even death. Diseases spread, and many of the lions, unfortunately, had to be put to sleep. The zoo only had 15 animals to begin with, and were all likely cobbled from abandoned animals. But in the mid-1920s, a film producer donated the zoo many more animals. They were part of his failed project to convert his studio into an animal theme park. And in the 1930s, the zoo population grew once more, from the shuttered, scandal-ridden East Lake Park Zoo. With the expansion in the 1930s, the cages became more like caves with iron bars. But still, the zoo received its fair share of criticism for the pens being too small, and that the animals were being treated bad in other ways. Monkeys were beaten, chlorine fumes suffocated penguins, and many other animals suffered injuries. The ensuing years even brought more grief and bad press. A baby zebra and young bears suffered broken necks. Bears escaped an enclosure during the severe 1935 flood. Fights between tortoises and other animals were common and had to be broken up by caretakers. This terrified other nearby animals and birds. In April of 1934, Topsy, the last American camel and star attraction, had died. Topsy was said to have been one of the last, if not the last, survivor of camel herds that once carried packs across the mountains of southeastern California. She appeared in Fox movies and with the Ringling Brothers Circus. During a tragic train accident, her two humps were disfigured, and then she was taken in by the zoo to spend the remainder of her life here. The zoo's closure loomed when the park management voiced displeasure. But the zoo struggled on, taking in even more animals. In spite of the fact the zoo had over 2 million visitors each year, the zoo would ultimately close its doors for good in 1966. After the zoo closed, it wasn't demolished. The animals were transferred to the new Los Angeles Zoo about 2 miles north. But the old animal enclosures remained intact. Some bars were removed and picnic tables were placed inside. It was turned into an urban jungle and people loved it. But at night, when the public is gone, eerie things happen. The legend of the curse of Griffith Park. After the closure of the zoo, the land has been a dumping place for several murder victims. In 2012, a human skull was found. Studies showed that it belonged to a woman in her 20s, but the cause of death, her identity, and the rest of her remains were never found. But the curse is said to go back 150 years. The land belonged to a big landowner and farmer, Don Antonio Feliz. He became a victim of smallpox in 1863. And on his deathbed, he was tricked into changing his will. His plot of land was inherited by a local politician. Don Antonio's niece, Donna, quickly understood what happened, and she cursed the politician and the land, that no success would ever be made on this land, and the politician died not long after she cursed him. Whether or not the curse worked is unclear, but for certain, the land had suffered a lot before it became a zoo. The next landowner started a cattle farm, but not long after he started his business, the cattle contracted a disease, and eventually all died. Later, crops were destroyed by a fire and pests. When Griffith J. Griffith finally bought the land, a nasty thunderstorm caused major flood damage. Some of his ranch hands said that they have seen a shadowy figure cheering and dancing in the lightning. Was this the ghost of Don Antonio? Griffith eventually donated the land to the city of Los Angeles in 1896. The ghosts of Don Antonio and Donna are reportedly still seen near the old abandoned zoo. Donna has been seen in a white dress riding a white horse, and Don Antonio has been spotted near B-Rock. The zoo is said to also be haunted as well. Lori Stinshield, a pet psychic, visited the zoo back in 2010. She immediately envisioned the animals that used to live at Griffith Park Zoo. She saw malnourished big cats feasting on other cage mates, a monkey that accidentally hung itself, elephants with sore infected feet, and other suffering animals. Some claim that they can still hear the phantom sound of animals in distress when they pass by the zoo.
Go into the bear pit.
No, run, no. regret this decision.
Ron, what are you doing? Why didn't you go get help?
These bears are massive. They looked a lot smaller from up there. Oh, you woke the bears. Why did you do that?